Meggan, Tales of the Heroic Shape-Shifting Mutant. Among the various human mutants created in the X-Men story arcs, Meggan Pucano was one of the lesser-known mutants who usually appeared as a supporting character for X-Men and Captain Britain story arcs. She first appeared in the Mighty World of Marvel Comics in 1983, and she could even shapeshift and mimic others' powers among her abilities. Her character was created by Alan Moore and Alan Davis, and she was eventually even known as Gloriana or the Goblin Princess. Meggan appeared in various Captain Britain, X-Men, and even New Mutant comics, and today we will explore her character and tell you everything about this heroic shape-shifting mutant. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This may be a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Exploring the backstory of Meggan. Meggan was born as a British Romani at their camp in the north of England near Fenborough Station. Initially, Meggan grew a furry coat and was even mistaken for a wolf girl. However, it was later revealed that she had grown the fur because she was feeling cold, and this was the first time that her shape-shifting powers had revealed themselves to the world. While she lived in a caravan with her parents, the other Romani kids and elders started spreading rumors about her, and even referred to her as a monstrous child. At a very young age, Meggan subconsciously started internalizing these rumors, and even grew bat wings and fangs, as well as some other features that the Romani had speculated about her. Meggan's parents were quite scared to let her out of their caravan, and they kept her locked inside without any contact with the external world or the other Romani children. She was only allowed to watch television all day and did not even receive a formal education, leaving her as an illiterate child. Her parents only allowed her to venture out at night, and she never had any normalcy in her childhood. When the reality-altering mutant Mad Jim Jaspers unleashed his powers over Britain, all the supernatural entities were locked into camps and taken away. The raiders had even attacked the Romani camp, capturing Meggan and her father William. They then placed Meggan in a concentration camp and separated her from her father and the rest of her family. At this point, Meggan hoped that the hero named Captain Britain, also known as Brian Braddock, would come to her rescue. This was even covered in the Mighty World of Marvel Comics, Volume 2, Issue number 7, wherein Meggan spent her time at the concentration camp with another girl named Susan Parsons. They appeared in a section titled The Candlelight Dialogues, wherein the two girls share their stories of hope and talk about Captain Britain. Susan talks about how Captain Britain had defeated an army of beetles to help a couple, while Meggan shares a rumor about Captain Britain fighting alongside an army of superheroes. Meggan even talks about her family and how she lived in hiding for many years, and they soon blow a candle out and go to sleep. Mad Jim Jaspers was eventually defeated, and all the mutants were released from these concentration camps. While their reality was restored to its normal state, Meggan realized that many things had changed with time, and a lot of her memories confused her. She then started living in an abandoned warehouse where she became friends with two teenagers named Josie and Mickey. Around this time, Meggan started feeling uneasy during a full moon, and these kids assumed that she was some form of werewolf. During one of these full moons, Meggan even ran into Captain Britain and tried to attack him in a state of fury. While she battled him, some debris fell on her friend Mickey and he ended up dying. Meggan snapped back to reality and ran away from the scene, and Captain Britain even visited Mickey's family and apologized for his death. While Meggan did not initially approach Mickey's parents, she observed the scene from afar when Captain Britain owned up to his mistake and then felt that she must also do the same. Captain Britain also felt terrible about Meggan's situation and offered her to live as his guest at the Braddock Manor. Meggan agreed to his offer, and the two of them soon arrived at the manor, where they were greeted by Psylocke, Brian's sister Betty, and a mutant telepath named Alison Double. Alison sensed Meggan's beauty and even remarked on it by calling her aura radiant. However, Meggan stated that she had only lived as a monster so far and did not realize that she could alter her looks. Eventually, Meggan started expanding her shape-shifting powers and even tried on new forms, and she once turned into a beautiful blonde woman during a battle. They were dealing with the Warpies children who had mutated due to Mad Jim Jaspers' manipulation, and Meggan had taken this form while fighting with one of the Warpies named Cherub Whirlwind. Captain Britain found her new form quite attractive and she harbored a crush on him as well. The two went on many adventures together and even left the Warpies with Betsy, who took care of them at the Braddock Manor. While she travelled, Meggan started exploring her powers even more and tried to mimic the powers of the animals she saw on her adventures. During an encounter with a witch named Baba Yaga, Meggan used magical powers against her and exhibited an ability to mimic others' powers. After returning to the UK from a trip to Incan, Peru, Meggan and Brian decided to settle down, and they even bought a new lighthouse named Braddock Lighthouse on the shores of Cornwall, England. Some of her major comic book story arcs. Meggan during the Excalibur story arc. Brian, Braddock and Meggan decided to travel to Russia to learn more about their heritage when the witch named Baba Yaga possessed Meggan and even had her shapeshift into a reptile. When the couple was sharing a kiss, Meggan's sudden change into a reptile came as a shock, and they soon realized that the witch was trying to kill Brian through Meggan. Meggan then used her powers and cast a magic spell to defeat Baba Yaga, while Brian's sister Betsy decided to become Captain Britain in his absence. Brian and Meggan continued to live at their lighthouse until Betsy fell ill, and they soon had to return so that Brian could serve as Captain Britain again. In the meantime, Meggan started learning to read and write, while Betsy soon recovered and joined the X-Men. One day, Meggan was watching TV when she learned about the X-Men's death in Dallas, and she tried to console Brian, who was stricken with grief. He even started avoiding Meggan, and she eventually went to Muir Island by herself and ran into Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde. The three of them went on an adventure together to rescue Rachel Summers from the Warwolves, and then came back together to form the Excalibur. After forming this group, Meggan invited them to move into their lighthouse, but Brian was quite uncomfortable with sharing his space with strangers. The two soon started having disagreements, and Brian felt quite frustrated with Meggan's behavior. Moreover, she also got quite close to Nightcrawler at the time and even sought comfort in his company after having fights with Brian. The two almost even kissed at one point, but restrained themselves. After some time, Rachel ran into trouble in New York and Excalibur went to her rescue along with Meggan. However, Meggan was influenced by the demons who turned her into an evil goblin princess. She then started attacking her team members and even tortured them until Kitty Pryde finally defeated her. She was then embarrassed about her behavior and constantly changed her appearance to deal with her identity crisis. She also started traveling to various Earths along with Excalibur and formed a friendship with Rachel Summers. When Meggan finally returned home after a long adventure, Captain Britain and Nightcrawler started fighting over her, and she got quite overwhelmed and decided to leave. Rachel accompanied her, and the two decided to travel and look for Meggan's family. On this mission, they were fooled by a fake fortune teller who led them to a cave inhabited by Neri. Meggan was then taken to an astral plane by the Neri, and it was here that she finally transformed into her natural appearance and realized the true extent of her powers. Meggan and Rachel then abandoned their mission to find her family and returned to help Excalibur in their fight against a sorcerer named Necrom. She even learned that the wizard named Merlin had been influencing their group for an extended period of time, and he was using their powers to rebuild an energy matrix to the other world. Brian and Meggan then destroy their lighthouse to eliminate the link between them and the other world, thereby even cutting Merlin's access to the energy matrix. The group then moved to Braddock Manor, where Jamie Braddock and Satyr 9 once drugged them. Meggan used her powers to defeat Jamie and even resist his mind control tactics, and then helped the others to break free from his manipulations as well. In the meantime, Satyr 9 had manipulated Brian into killing Meggan, but he realized this order and broke free of mind control. After getting rid of Jamie and Satyr 9, Brian realized that Satyr 9 was also responsible for killing his ex-girlfriend, and he went after him. Meggan soon started feeling lonely and hurt over the fact that Brian had abandoned her, but Brian soon realized his mistake and then took Meggan on vacation. During this vacation, Brian proposed to Meggan, but things soon took a turn when he lost all his powers after destroying the energy matrix. Soon after, Meggan started acting distant and later confessed that she was only attracted to his Captain Britain aura. She admitted that she didn't know if she could love him, but his powers soon returned to him. However, things kept going downhill as Brian was separated from their group and was lost in the time stream. Meanwhile, Meggan also went into a catatonic state, and her teammates from Excalibur struggled to contact attacked her until she finally started reviving on her own. She then sensed that Brian was also somewhere around her, and her powers even enabled her to feel that Brian and Rachel had a connection. In a state of fury, she went after Rachel's Phoenix Force and convinced her to help Brian return to the correct time stream. Her efforts to ensure Brian's safety changed Meggan's powers to some extent, but she could then control all the forces of nature such as earth, water, and so on. Meggan's marriage to Brian. Meggan and Brian soon decided to get married. However, when Brian was kidnapped by the dragons of the Crimson Dawn in Hong Kong, they faced yet another challenge. While fighting them off, Brian's energy levels reached an impossible level, and Meggan came to his aid and helped him release his energy into the atmosphere. This process left him with no powers, and he decided to lead a new life independently. Meggan was left alone and heartbroken, and she was briefly even attracted to Colossus. However, she waited for Brian's return and even visited the docks to sit there and wait until he returned. When Brian finally returned, he did not have the powers, but the two decided to get married immediately. They had a wedding ceremony on Otherworld, and Roma officiated the ceremony while many members of the X-Men and Excalibur attended the wedding. After getting married, Meggan decided to stay by Brian's side as he conducted new scientific experiments until they learned about how Roma had gone mad and killed many of Captain Britain's corps. Brian finally got his powers back and then went after Roma, who stepped down as the king of the Otherworld. Brian then became the new king, and Meggan started by his side as he rebuilt the core and undid the damage done by Roma. Meggan during the House of M story arc. During the House of M story arc, Meggan and Brian found themselves in a situation where they had only 48 hours to find the crack in reality and restore the world. They traveled to Earth with Psylocke and Phoenix Force and discovered that they were the only royalty of England in this current reality. They started looking for the other members of the House of M and even fought the Omega Sentinel as they tried to locate their old lighthouse. After reaching the lighthouse, Meggan realized that the crack in reality was situated inside the place, and she managed to close the crack by entering this crack and sealing it from the inside. While reality was restored, very few mutants remembered what had happened, and even Captain Britain did not know that Meggan had sacrificed herself to restore reality. Meggan's adventures in an alternate dimension. After the events of House of M, Meggan was trapped in an alternate dimension connected to Ptolka, a magical being who fed on his victims' souls. Captain Britain saw Meggan through a door that connected the two dimensions, and he even jumped through the door to save her. He soon realized that he was living in a dimension where all his dreams were real, and he started questioning whether he even saw Meggan there or if she was just an illusion. This directly impacted Meggan's existence in the dimension, and she faded from there and reappeared in hell. However, she was still alive, and she tried to leverage her authority and talk to the 5 Lords of Hell. The Lords of Hell were missing their Duke of Hell, Ptolka, and she even offered them information on his location in exchange for her freedom. She even asked them if they believed she belonged there, and one of the Lords trick-answered her question and caused her to connect with Hell empathetically. She then turned into a monster, and Dormammu teleported her to a different part of Hell, where she started empathetically connecting with the other demons. She eventually led an uprising in Hell and was known as Gloriana among her followers. She decided to keep this identity and continue turning the demons against the idea of Hell, and even introduced them to hope. She used her hope to find a portal out of Hell and eventually ended up on the ship that was sailing for England. This ship was led by Dracula, and Meggan even met Dr. Doom on this ship. Doom had teamed up with Dracula to attack Britain, and he intended to use Meggan's powers to strip Dracula of his powers. Meggan used her powers to turn Dracula's followers against him when Captain Britain also attacked the ship and reunited with Meggan. The couple then defeated Dracula and his allies such as Lilith and then lived together happily. After Krakoa Nation's creation and the X-Men's end, Meggan joined Excalibur once again. What makes Meggan such a powerful mutant? Meggan had super strength and durability. She could even draw strength from the Earth's resources to fight her opponents. She had great control over air, fire, water, and earth, which helped her defeat her enemies even when she did not have any weapons to defend herself. Meggan was quite an empath, and her empathetic abilities allowed her to feel as well as influence others' emotions. She could even see psychic and magical auras of other people and even track people down with her enhanced sensory abilities. She could even see and hear fear magnetic fields, air currents, and other such phenomena, and sometimes even converse with ghosts. Meggan's empathetic abilities even allowed her to change her body in response to the emotions around her. She became beautiful when she felt loved, or turned into a monster when she experienced anger. She was an empathic metamorph who could assume the form of any living creature or even turned into sand or water. She used her powers to adapt to her surroundings, and she even grew fur as a child when she felt cold. When she shapeshifted into another being, she also gained their powers and was able to understand their language as well as their emotions. For instance, she once took the form of a dragon and gained the ability to breathe fire, and she once even grew gills while moving underwater. In her truest form, Meggan could form a psionic link with the environment and manipulate the local ecosystems. The environment often responded to Meggan's commands, and she could cause volcanoes to erupt, split lakes in half, and even cause earthquakes during a fit of rage. She could also manipulate the atomic structure of man-made buildings and structures, or even send electromagnetic pulses into the environment and increase the temperature around her. She could focus the elemental energy around her to shoot strong energy blasts, and she used this energy to change her shape or fly. Meggan could propel herself in the air and fly at high speed, but this requires some effort on her part. She could survive energy-based attacks and even deflect any weapons or magical attacks, and she was resistant to mind control. She could break free from any reality warping attacks, and her shape-shifting abilities helped her deflect such attacks. However, she was vulnerable to telepathic attacks, and a higher order being could easily dominate her mind. She could also manipulate magical energy, and her powers reached a new peak whenever she was in a magical realm. She was quite skilled at hand-to-hand combat despite not being officially trained in it, and she could often mimic others' powers to catch up on their skills. In one such instance, she even defeated Captain Britain in a fencing match despite not having any training. Conclusion. To sum it up, Meggan was indeed one of the most powerful mutants who appeared as a sporting character for the X-Men, and she even had quite a fascinating life. While she is not a part of many mainstream comics or shows, we surely hope to see her character being included in future X-Men projects. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.